and the excuse for rose-tinted reminiscence? I am afraid my answer is a disappointment. There was no fire, and Alan Turing was not a subject for discussion. He died in 1954, and during my childhood in the following decade, the circumstances of his death were still raw and not for exposure. Only when my grandmother, the author of the first and until 1984 only biography of Alan Turing, died in the mid-70s, did things begin to change. At the same time, the astonishing fact of Bletchley Park's successes broke news, and the possibility that Alan Turing had been involved in some way became known. My father rediscovered pride in his younger brother, and, in a short chapter in one of his many unpublished books, felt able to write a counterblast to his own mother's 1959 hagiography of Alan. Alan Turing had, in a sense, been the inventor of the computer, which had earned him a fellowship of the Royal Society, which was pretty amazing in itself, and now there was the added thrill of a key role in breaking enigma at Bletchley Park. That meant that Alan Turing's influence on my own life was subtle. In the early 1970s, Bletchley was still a tightly kept secret. Few people had any experience of a computer, and the knowledge of Alan Turing's contribution to computer science was limited to exactly that small group of specialists who had studied this rarefied field. But it certainly motivated me. I followed in his footsteps to Sherborne School, where it seemed strange that it was the biology building, not the computer room, that had been named after him. At least the school had a computer, which was unusual for the time. After school, I followed Alan to King's College, Cambridge. This again was a deliberate choice. If he had gone there, that was the road to follow. And I suppose it was partly because of Alan's legacy that I chose to study science subjects there, though subsequently I realized that my skills probably lie elsewhere, and I did not, in the end, make science my career. In the 35 or so years since I left university, all that has changed. The Bletchley story, coupled with the standard narrative of Alan Turing's life story, has resonated strongly with the public. It is right and humbling for people to want to know more. But this is not a biography. Rather, this is about how events in Alan's background, his family, his life, and his achievements could stimulate us to think about ourselves and our own society. Although it is Alan Turing that brings us to this reckoning, it is for us to grow his legacy. The legacy of Alan Turing is not just about code breaking and information security, or even his ground-laying work in computer science or biology or mathematics, though I believe he would much rather have been remembered for these things than his personal story. His story is certainly not a license to indulge in the false nostalgia of a war won by force of intellect, rather than the foul business of killing, nor even to congratulate ourselves for our modern liberalism towards homosexuality. Instead, I suggest that Alan Turing's legacy, seen in the context of his origins and achievements, is an agenda. To use his own words, "We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done." I hope you agree, and that you will find inspiration in this mirror on the life of someone truly remarkable. Chapter 2. Raj. It was daunting enough for any young man of 16 to be summoned to the company's offices in Leadenhall Street, even if only to appear before the Committee of Shipping. The streets of London were filthy and dangerous, and quite alien to someone born on a different continent. The business of the committee was somewhat alien too, reflecting the changing nature of the company. For it was 1791, and the office had become something more than an administrative base for a trading operation. It was turning itself into a house of government, and within 5 years the classical but modest frontage would be deemed inadequately grandiose, the buildings on either side acquired, and the whole lot knocked down to be replaced by a neo-Roman temple, because that's what you need if you aspire to empire. The young man in question was John William Turing, a junior officer in the service of the Honourable East India Company, and he was in London to hear his fate. It's difficult to pinpoint exactly when the Turings arrived in India,